morning. Welcome to round 2 of the Catapult podcast, hosted by Microsoft Dynamics World. I'm Elliot Fishman, CEO of Catapult. We're a Microsoft partner focused on ERP and CRM implementation, support, and managed services. I'm joined this morning by my colleagues Jeff Bacon, Vice President of Client Development, and Blair Hurlbut, Vice President of Solution Delivery. Morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So last episode, we covered Microsoft's vision for Dynamics in the cloud. We went into things like what is Dynamics 365, how is the Dynamics brand evolving, what is Azure, et cetera. So today, what I'd like to do is dig into some of those details at a bit of a finer level of granularity and talk specifically about Dynamics 365. I want to cover, kind of where it came from, its capabilities, and hopefully our audience today can come away with an understanding of how these solutions differ from the legacy products and what this means for things like user experience. So let's get started. So Microsoft has introduced the Office 365 branding, I think, back in around 2011. It seems to me like it's been an incredibly successful move. I think it might be the only way to consume or to acquire access to the Microsoft Office productivity tools now. Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and then SharePoint as well. And now they've attached it to Dynamics. It might be a little bit of a reiteration from the last episode, but what's the impact of the 365 moniker being attached to Dynamics? Jeff?
Well, first and foremost, I think we touched on this last time, but it's broken apart the model. I think from the way you purchase, enterprise applications, typically what we would call CRM and ERP, and has allowed us to actually, kind of engage with clients on a bit of a different level. First and foremost, we've seen implementations where clients are ready to get rid of their hardware, kind of as we discussed previously. But along with that, they're actually looking to figure out a way to get all of their software bundled into a single kind of package through a partner. And really what that means is we're seeing an ability to not only transact on ERP and CRM type applications, but also through Office. But it's all based on a per user per month basis. So it's really, really easy. It's actually changed the way clients can actually pay for, acquire, and then deploy this type of software, kind of all in one stop shop rather than having to go and, buy CDs and get them sent or download software and then having license keys and all these types of things. It's really shifted the deployment method and made it really simple. Like, it used to take us, I would say, upwards to a day or maybe 2 days to get the software deployed on hardware. It actually now literally takes probably something like a half hour to an hour, just depending on the complexity. So it's really shifted access to it as well as the ability to buy it.
Great, thanks. So let's dive right into capabilities. In terms of what's out there, we've got the Dynamics 365 brand, and then it seems like it's broken down into different applications for specific purposes. So we've got things like Dynamics 365 for sales or Dynamics 365 for finance. Let's look at the ERP side first. Blair, what capabilities are currently offered under the Microsoft Dynamics 365 brand?
Yeah, so there's essentially two levels of sizing for the ERP side of things. You have the enterprise Fortune 500 type companies that have an offering there that essentially is Dynamics AX available in the cloud. And then there's the small to medium sized businesses that are looking at the D365 for financials, which is Dynamics Nav in the cloud. As of right now, there are some limitations of what people can do with the D365 financial side of things. It's not a full product as of yet, but in 2018, Microsoft will be releasing some other modules such as manufacturing that allow people that are currently on-premise for Dynamics Nav to be able to have an option to move to a cloud offering moving forward. So it's still in its infant sort of stages right now, but the product is growing very quickly, and it should be on par in 2018 with the on-prem version of it.
What about customization and development on the finance and operations platform? One of the things that Dynamics Nav was particularly well known for, I believe it's used by something like 125,000 companies worldwide, and I think one of the reasons for its success is that it is so flexible, and it has been so possible to work within the Nav SDKs to build custom functionality, integrate, and so forth. Can we expect the same thing in Dynamics 365 for finance and operations?
That'll be coming in 2018. It's not available as of right now. So if there is a regulatory requirement where a client needs customizations or some sort of differentiator in their business, that's something that we can't do as of today. But moving forward, it's going to be something that'll be available. One of the kind of drawbacks to this in the initial implementation of this is the ISV community, is that they're going to have to redevelop all of their code base to be able to support how D365 for financials is going to work in the future. So there might be a little bit of a lag of getting ISVs up into that environment moving forward.
Right. Jeff, let's talk about the CRM side of things. So in the past, we had Microsoft Dynamics CRM, and I think there were a few different license types depending on the functionality you need. Now you have Dynamics 365 for sales, Dynamics 365 for marketing and customer insights, for field service. What does that all mean? What do you? How do we make sense of the product offering, or the app offering, if you will, on the CRM side of things?
Well, kind of exactly like you said. In the past, it was something like CRM Online, and I don't know exactly what the moniker behind that was, but you would get all of the capabilities into one license. Now it's separated out into sales, it's separated into service, field service, professional service, and I think there's another one, talent, which has some integration into CRM. What it's done is it's kind of focused the types of companies that are looking for that type of capability, and allowed for a different type of kind of transaction, again, on how you buy it. It used to be that, again, you had to buy everything at one price. Now there's different layers. So, for example, CRM for sales is now split into enterprise and small business. So if you're a small business, you get a different pricing structure, but you have limitation on users, versus enterprise, which actually bundles in a few other things, but allows you to have unlimited user cap. So it's really allowed us to kind of focus in and help our clients understand what model they really need to look at, and be able to, I guess, limit the capabilities that they have without actually limiting them in the future. So it helps them to keep the traditional, or initial implementation quite lean, and the license to go along with that. So there's lots of, I would say, impact in the way that things are sized, and it feels like it's a little bit more right-sized these days.
Great. And what if I need Dynamics 365 for sales and field service and some finance and operations? Can I bundle licensing as a customer, or is it just separate subscriptions for each app?
No, you can bundle. There's actually an enterprise license that allows you to transact on all of those. Again, I don't know all of the SKUs for sure, but I think you can actually kind of take these either as an all-in-one. There is some SKU that allows you to have that, and then others that you can treat it a little bit more a la carte, and so it kind of grows with your business as you go, and you can right size your subscription based on the types of capabilities that you need.
And the number of users as well. Can I ramp up users and ramp down users?
For sure. Yeah.
Sounds like a very flexible model. So not to get off on a tangent about licensing too much, in the past, customers, either, certainly on-premise customers worked with VAR partners to acquire their licenses. But when Microsoft first rolled out online solutions in the enterprise space, so CRM Online, they would subscribe directly through Microsoft, and the partner really wasn't involved. My understanding is that Microsoft has rolled out a cloud services provider program, so partners can now transact directly with customers to provision Dynamics 365 capabilities. Does that seem like a positive thing for the customer? Or what's the impact, or a positive thing for the partner? Does it? And what's the impact there?
Yeah, I think it's positive for both the partner and the customer. A lot of the rollouts that Microsoft had done with some of these new cloud applications was more of the client signs up, the client plays with the application for a period of time in a trial, and they can decide whether or not to implement or make it a full subscription moving forward. The one area where I think it hindered both the partners and the clients themselves is that we're supposed to be value add, and we can, as partners, help guide the customer of how should you configure this based on your business. The model that Microsoft had at the beginning of going direct to Microsoft to be able to sign up for these trials really limited that interaction between partners and clients. So they weren't getting any of that benefit of this is how you should use the application because this is how the application works inherently. So we're starting to have more of those conversations so that we can do I would say a better implementation versus just kind of slapping in an application and trying to get it to work for an organization's business.
Yeah, and I think it's actually helped us as a partner be more effective at support. In the past, kind of like Blair said, the client would maintain all of the ownership, I guess, of the transaction, but not only that, of the environment with Microsoft. And we wouldn't really have a whole lot to do with it unless, of course, the client agreed to grant us a license. But now, given the fact we can transact on a cloud services platform, we actually can have access to their environment. So it allows us to actually maintain their subscription, kind of monitor whether storage is kind of going up and down, help them to provision users or spin down users, add new capabilities as well. So it's been, I'd say, a lot more effective of a tool for us to maintain and help our clients support those applications, because in the past, they just kind of assumed that Microsoft was taking care of it. But the reality is the thing that Microsoft would do is just kind of push down new applications and then a bunch of notifications and assume the customer knew what they were talking about. So it's helped us to maintain a bit more of an intimate relationship on the knowing the application and how it's deployed and what's going to be valuable for the customer from a support perspective.
Great, thank you. Put on my customer hat for a second. Let's say I'm a existing Microsoft Dynamics CRM or even a CRM Online customer or a Microsoft Dynamics Nav customer. Sounds very much like Microsoft's evolving the roadmap for my solutions. What does this mean for me? Is it a fairly easy transition to Dynamics 365? Do I always, do I want to? Is there a reason to maintain my existing investment, or, the sooner the better, jump onto subscription licensing and transition to cloud solutions? Blair?
From the Dynamics Nav side of things right now, it's still a little bit of an unknown for clients going directly to D365. But if a client didn't have any customizations, then it would be an easier transition just to say, let's move you to D365 for financials. If it's an organization that has customizations today, obviously that's not an option because we won't be able to recreate those. But once they roll out the newer version of D365 for financials, which will be essentially on par with Dynamics NAV, that's when we're going to start to be able to see and recommend to people that now's the time to move onto the cloud. And what we're expecting to be released with that is basically a migration path for people who currently have on-prem servers to be able to take their Dynamics Nav instance and be able to replicate that onto the D365 cloud version of the application. But until sometime in late spring, we won't know when those tools will be available.
Gotcha. And just one follow-on question to that. I'm a Microsoft Dynamics Nav customer with an on-premise, or let's say even an Azure deployment. Can I count on continued support for my legacy version? Let's say, which versions is Microsoft still supporting, and for how long? Is there going to be some pressure from that angle to migrate?
Yeah, they're going to continue to keep the same support mechanisms as they've had. They support 2 or 3 versions back. I believe 2013 and 2013 R2 just came off support in January of 2018. So if you're running something that's obviously 2013 R2 or older, there's no longer any hot fixes or updates for that type of thing. But they will continue to support the 2015, 2016, 2017 instances for the next couple of years. Basically, 2015 will fall off support next year and so forth. But eventually, it'll be one product with the online version and the on-prem version. So I think that's beneficial for people. If they want to continue with an on-prem, they can keep doing that after this newer release. But eventually, say they had just purchased some new servers and they have a 3-year life cycle to them. In 3 years, they could look at what's our path to move on to a fully SaaS-based application versus keeping it on-prem.
Yeah, and I think that's an important factor there is kind of keeping with Microsoft's guiding principles of customer choice. They also have license transition. So if you're current on traditional annual maintenance, they're keen to get you on a cloud-based service. So there is a transition path and some availability to migrate from a license perspective. In addition to that, if you're not fully ready for the cloud but wanted to kind of transact on the new license model, whereby it's a monthly subscription, you can also have something called dual use right license, which allows you to run the cloud-based software on premise. So they're really thinking about this and helping clients to achieve that journey, not only through tools, but also through licensing mechanisms as well. And especially taking into account, you're a loyal customer and current on maintenance. So, so there's lots to consider when moving, but at the same time, lots that Microsoft has and available to clients that are ready to have that discussion or make that move.
Sounds like a good discussion for a customer to have with their Dynamics partner. Now, Jeff, same question to you, just rewinding to just talk a little bit about the migration path for CRM customers. Now, CRM Online emerged quite a bit before that we ever heard about Dynamics 365. It's been around for a few years. I know certainly at Catapult we've helped a number of customers migrate from on-premise CRM deployments to CRM Online. Now, what's the migration path to Dynamics 365 for sales, service, et cetera? Is it if you're CRM Online or CRM on-prem for that matter?
Yeah, well, the application itself's been on par, I think, for almost 3 years now. So it's kind of like for like. In fact, in many respects, the online or subscription-based version is ahead of the game because there's actually cloud-based services that snap into that platform that are available. So kind of with that in mind, there isn't really a like-for-like or one-for-one migration path. Certainly, there are capabilities available on each platform, but we do need to consider basically a cloud-based deployment versus an on-prem. And there's just a couple things that typically always are important things. One is user experience or user performance. So we want to make sure that that particular implementation is optimized for the cloud. So what that means is kind of limiting views and making sure that data views and pages are actually kind of optimized for efficiency, rather than in the past you can have all things on one page and just make it readily available. Other things that are important are, as in the past, I'm not sure why this happened, but there was a proliferation of reports that went along with any CRM implementation. It was the biggest thing. What reports come with this thing? What reports? But that's kind of no longer the case. And so there's different ways we need to develop for cloud-based deployments. So really when we're talking about a migration path, we are talking about basically taking the data from one and then refactoring for online type deployment. Even though it might be very similar, it's a little bit different, and it does have, I would say, its own complexities, and is a bit more like a project in its own right. So again, when we're talking to customers, it's not just a yes, yes, next type scenario. It's actually something that does need some consideration and planning. So again, certainly be useful for any client considering that type of move to chat with their partner.
Great, thank you. I'll just ask another question of you, Jeff, because I think you alluded to some interesting things just there about user experience. How does I'm curious how Dynamics 365 impacts user experiences overall. I mean, we know it's subscription based, and we know it's deployed in the cloud, which I think by now everybody knows means it's available through your browser, which suggests anytime, anywhere access. What about things like mobile and and just speed and productivity and interfaces? What are your is Microsoft is Dynamics 365 delivering some new stuff in terms of the user experience and productivity enhancement?
Yeah, certainly. From a mobile experience, for one, literally when we configure, we can make the forms mobile ready or available for the mobile platform. That mobile platform is basically a download from the App Store, which is a free download, and then basically makes that CRM application available on your mobile phone. What's interesting about cloud-based deployments, in the past, we used to have lots of infrastructure to support mobile implementations or other types of form factors. Now it's not so much. It's actually just basically synchronizing the service. But again, getting back to my previous statement, I think we have to be, as partners, more thoughtful about cloud-based deployments and the solutions we do deploy, and keeping in mind that we have some of the forms being mobile ready. We can't just put everything on a single form and then expect it to be rendered well in a mobile type environment, or even in an online type environment. So the capabilities are there, but the reality is it still takes a bit of thoughtfulness around how are we optimizing this for the user experience or for the people that are actually using it. And so what that means, I think in our CRM world, is we're actually having to think about multiple user types, and are we consuming the data? Are we consuming the application sitting in an office, or are we consuming it on a mobile phone, or are we sitting off in the beach somewhere? So it's actually allowed us to be a little bit more I would say client-centric around how we structure projects and how we deploy the applications.
Interesting, thanks. Blair, what about on the ERP side? It seems to me that ERP experiences have always been more rooted in fairly standardized business processes, particularly as it relates to finance or supply chain, more in-office scenarios. But of course, we do have people who work in warehouses or who do field service and are not necessarily working from behind a desk. What are your thoughts about Dynamics 365 finance and operations and the user experience that it delivers, or the possibility it opens up for extended user scenarios?
Yeah, the D365 for finance changes that have been required to move to online or browser-based application has been pretty impressive, because the web client has moved so far in a very short period of time. When they originally rolled it out, it was very difficult to use, had very limited functionality. So every time you attend a Microsoft D365 or a Dynamics Nav session, they essentially talk about all of the improvements that they've added to the web client, because that's the way that people are going to consume data within an ERP moving forward. And so the improvements have been drastic. The other thing that I see from a user experience is having a single sign-on. Typically in the past, ERPs did not work in that sort of way. So using your email to be able to sign on to Office 365, to be able to access the CRM functionality, to access your ERP functionality, is kind of a game changer, because there's always been a talk of having a single sign-on with a lot of organizations. And now we're actually being able to see it happen using D365, be it for your ERP or for CRM, and for all of the Office products that are also out there.
Well, it sounds like something that users can get really excited about. We don't often say that in the ERP world. Guys, thanks very much. We've covered a lot today. I think we've really surfaced a lot of interesting information about Dynamics 365. how it's packaged, delivered, and what some of its benefits are. Hopefully, our listeners have taken away something meaningful from the discussion. Really strikes me as a different way of approaching enterprise software. I'm personally very excited about it. So that brings things to a close for this episode. Hope everybody will join us again for our third and final episode of the series on MS Dynamics World, where we'll get into Microsoft Azure. What is it? Who is it for? And how you can use it. Until then, don't forget to check out our blog at www.catapulterp.com for the latest news and insights about Microsoft Dynamics CRM and ERP capabilities, and sign up for our newsletter to be notified about ebooks, white papers, and additional podcasts. Until then, this is Elliot Fishman for Catapult. Have a great day.